Welcome back. Today I want to take a look at a rapid game that I played on Lichess recently, and the thing that spurred me to put it in a video is because the ending is very weird. If you're like me and you don't resign in these short time control games and you just keep playing even when you know you're behind, you've probably seen your opponent promote weirdly. For example, they'll already have a queen or a rook on the board so they could easily checkmate you, but instead they just kind of shuffle you off to the side so they can promote all their pawns to bishops and knights and stuff like that. So yeah, I see that frequently because very often I don't resign unless, I'm just exhausted or something. But in this game, my opponent promoted their pawns to knights. All of them. They didn't have any of their original knights remaining, but they had 5 pawns and they turned them all into knights. And yes, the position on the board as shown is checkmate, because this knight is guarding these 2 squares, this knight is guarding this square and checking, and this knight back here is guarding these 2 squares, and this knight back here is guarding that one. What's really strange is that before they started promoting to knights, Stockfish says they had a mate in 5. 33 moves earlier, right here, which is right after I lost my last pawn, and I have just moved my king. All my opponent has to do is promote this pawn to a queen. You can see Stockfish here says they should promote the g-pawn to a queen, but they also have mate in 5 if they just play b2. Either way, they have a mate in 5. But instead they began to promote to knights, and I shuffled my king around and they promoted another pawn to a knight. I decided I was going to go on a quest and try to get to their king's home square because, just for fun. And also if they're just going to promote to knights, I thought maybe they wouldn't be able to checkmate me or they would stalemate me. Because that's happened a few times when I notice an opponent is promoting oddly, like they're getting too many queens, or they're just getting a bunch of bishops, that sort of thing. I've had several of those opponents stalemate because they were having so much fun promoting their pawns, they forgot that they have to check me and leave me legal moves. But anyway, I went on about my quest to get down to their side of the board, and they kept pushing their pawns, and so I just, shuffled along their back rank here and waited for them to promote the rest of the pawns, which they did, all to knights, as I said. As you could see, 16 moves before this, they had no knights and they had 5 pawns, but now they're all knights. Now here, Stockfish says they had mate in 9. First, it's my turn. I have to move my king one way or the other. Now they have a mate in 6. I don't know if my opponent knew that and was just having fun, or they weren't sure what to do at this point after they had fun getting all their knights, but they just brought their bishop, and I kept moving, and they kept bringing their bishop. They were playing this little game thinking maybe that they could checkmate me with their bishop. This is what I thought at the time. Obviously, I don't know what they were thinking, but they can't checkmate me with just a king and a bishop, so we did this little dance here, and they used the bishop to force me back out to the other side of the board. And now, their bishop's cutting off this square and their king's cutting off these, so I only have one way to go here. So I went that way, and they started bringing the knights. And then the first thing that they did was stack them all up in a row, which maybe that was a quest that they were on, kind of like my quest to get to their king's home square. They still have a mate in 6. This is quite a few moves later, but here you can see that they did checkmate me in 7 moves. So they probably knew what they were doing. I'm guessing they've done this before. I don't know why they moved their king twice there. Maybe they were just getting it out of the way, but either way, I was just shuffling until they got their knights over there, and that's checkmate. So I just showed this first, just, for fun, but I want to go back and see the point at which I went behind. Apparently I had an advantage way back here on move 10. My opponent has just blundered by playing this. I'm going to turn off the engine before I have a chance to see what I should have played. Now, if I look over to see what I did play, I will see the move that it suggests. Seems like there's a way to turn that off. What was it? Was it the Z key? Yes, it was the Z key. Okay, so now I can look over to see what I did play, which was D5. And that apparently was a blunder. All right. Well, I'm not sure why. I didn't want to play E5 because then they could move their bishop and, oh, their bishop's not defended. Okay, so maybe I should have played E5? I don't know. What should I have done? Should I have moved this rook over? Should I have developed the bishop? I'm kind of getting nervous with all these pawns that they shoved forward very quickly at the beginning of the game. All right, I've looked around the board. I don't have any idea what I should have done. D5 still seems like it makes sense to me, but this is the last time that I had a lead in this game. I'm going to turn Stockfish back on here. It says I had to play H4 here to maintain my +2, or E5. Okay, I've stared at the board for quite some time. I have no idea why those 2 moves have to be played now and why not playing them lost me the game. There might be others, if I listed 4 moves up there, there might be another move that's 1.8 and another one that's 1.4. I don't know. But those 2. I do realize now that they didn't have a discovery on my queen. If I had played E5, then I could have just taken their bishop, but I don't know why I would play E5 over D5. I have no idea. Okay, but that's what it says. So when I played D5, we went back to even, maybe even slightly below even. Oh, very, very slightly, but we'll call that even. And my opponent has multiple moves. They didn't choose one of these top 2. They put their queen over here, which puts us slightly back into my favor. And I only have one good move here. Well, yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't know what's wrong with blocking with the rook. I have no idea. No, I know why I didn't block with the queen or the rook. Okay, I remember because I thought they could put their bishop up here. That's what that was. And I can't put my bishop here because of their pawn. Okay, so yeah, that's why I decided to move my king over, which Stockfish says was my only move. Okay, for a second it said I had like a 0.3 advantage, but it went down to almost 0 here if they'll play their best move, which they did. See, earlier I was worried about this, which is one reason that I played d5, but now c5 gets them past that. Am I supposed to be worried for these pieces down here? Is that the idea? I'm supposed to play g3 now, or b4. Okay, well I played a4. That wasn't counted as anything, but the advantage has tilted a little bit toward my opponent if they'll push past. Okay, I see the problem with that because that allows them to directly attack my knight. Okay, I get that. I think that maybe should have been counted as at least inaccurate, if not a mistake, because here they can't push it forward and attack my knight. If they push it forward and I take, and then they take, I guess that still attacks my knight. So no, wait, it doesn't make any difference. Okay, I still don't understand. Okay, never mind then. Yeah, I don't understand that. They pushed past. And it says my best move is to go ahead and push forward to attack their queen or play h4 and let them have the knight. They won't take it, obviously, if I push my pawn forward aiming at their queen. But if I play h4, they're going to take my knight, and I'm only going to be down half a point. That's very odd. But I didn't play either one of those. I got my knight out of danger, and that's a big problem. I should not have gotten my knight out of danger because they can play h4 or long castle. They did not. They played f6. So we're back to even. I needed to play bishop to c4. Okay, that actually seems like a good idea. Maybe, because it blocks the front pawn, and then I'll be able to play b3 here in a few minutes and lock in the bishop. Maybe, I don't know. But I think I understand that because otherwise my bishop's going to get trapped down here. Or g3 now. I also don't understand why sometimes it's saying I have to play h4 and sometimes it's saying I have to play g3, right? h4 is not listed anymore. And sometimes it is, and sometimes it's g3. I don't know. I can't really explain this move. It's a blunder. I'm not sure why it's a blunder, but I also can't explain why I did it. I think maybe I was trying to keep pushing this pawn, but that doesn't make any sense because there's a pawn in the way. So yeah, I don't know why I played this, but I also don't know why it's a blunder. Well, this isn't helping much. According to the graph, I'm already behind and will never recover, so well, that's frustrating. Well, hopefully you stopped watching after that fun part at the beginning where they checkmated me with the knights, because this part, frustrating. As you already saw, in the moves following this, my opponent didn't always make the best move and sometimes didn't even make, one of the top 2 or 3 moves. So I don't have any suspicion of them other than the end game, because I don't know how to checkmate somebody with a couple of knights, or in their case, 5 knights. I don't know how to do the bishop and knight checkmate. Apparently you can. I also don't know how to do the 2 bishops checkmate. I've tried several times. Even after reading the instructions, I followed out several things, looking at the engine, and then I went to try to do it, and it just didn't work. So the fact that they very confidently promoted all those pawns to knights and just went down and checkmated me, after toying with the bishop a little bit, tells me that they might actually be better than this level, but they didn't play like it in this first half of the game. Anyway, I don't know how I could have avoided this is the point here, because I looked at all these mistakes and blunders in this over these next dozen moves or so, and I don't understand why any of them are mistakes or blunders. Wait, I understand the one. That's where I gave up the e-pawn. I do understand that one, because I pushed the d-pawn too far and I got my queen away from defending it. That's the one I do understand, I think. I don't think I understand the rest. If you do, let me know, and attempt a very simple, clear explanation to my old man brain here. I will appreciate it. I also appreciate you spending your time here. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.